Welcome back to Pixel Perfect Marathon 2. My name is Zoku, and it is my pleasure to be your host for our next run today. We've got a treat for you folks. If you're a fan of love stories, and let me tell you, I didn't think I was, but I'm hearing lots of good things about this one. TempestMask1000 is here to run Curse Crackers, for whom the Belle toils any percent canonless for us. So, you know what? You've all been patient. You've all been wonderful. I hope you have your drinks and your snacks ready, because you're not going to want to miss a single second of this. Steve, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Zoku. Very much appreciate it, and always a pleasure to have you along for the ride. That said, as mentioned, hello, friends and fellow gamers. My name is TempestMask1000. Some of you know me as Steve, and it is time to present what is probably one of my favorite speed investments as of recent, in terms of just indie games in general. This is Curse Crackers, for whom the Belle toils. It's a recent platformer that's almost turned 1 year, if you could believe it, in terms of its official release. It has been technically out as of 2021, but more particularly in the demo version. But this is the second released game by indie dev team Colorgrave, a wonderful group of wonderful folks, and they are just so supportive of the speedrunning community. I actually want to give a quick shout out to Minbron, one of the Colorgrave members who is currently in the chat, and a runner themselves. So yeah, it's really cool stuff. But yeah, joining me today are two wonderful people. First time I've actually got a couple of commentators for this one, starting with my usual friend and fellow who has a voice with a smooth, buttery voice, and just a fantastic person. Also known for writing the auto splitter I'll be using today. It's Ioto Core.
Hello.
And also alongside me is what is probably my first VTuber commentator ever, if I'm not mistaken, is also a runner of this category. In fact, I do believe holds the second place time, or maybe the first, I can't remember, but is someone I also owe it to for today's routing. Liminality Carb.
Greetings, everyone.
All right, are you both ready to rock and roll?
I'm all set. I got my drink. I got my snacks. I'm ready to sit back and tell everybody everything that you are doing.
Yeah, let's do this.
And how about you, Zoku?
Oh, I am ready to enjoy this epic tale, Steve.
All right, you're gonna really find this game cute. I can only tell you that much. All right, here we go. So, quick options show. I got timer on. It's not necessary for your leaderboard time, but it is a little something that can be helpful for speed purposes. You know, it's nice to have. And then I also have this little feature on called Run Toggle, which means that normally you have to hold the trigger button if you play by controller in order to have your character run or move and run speed. But in turning this on, I instead have it where I just press the button and they will be in run speed. All right, timer will begin once I select Belle from the character select right here, because more recently was the introduction of Bonnie as a full-on playable character, which is a fantastic run, and something I just might be able to show if we have a little bit of extra time. I fully expect me to smash this estimate, but we'll have to see what everyone says behind the scenes. So with that in mind, we'll begin in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. All right, Ioto, take it away.
All right, so what we're doing today is the canonless any percent run. There are 3 variations we have of the any percent run for this game. There is the true any percent, which is just very simply clear the game as quickly as possible, get to the end credits. There's the any percent no cactus run, which is basically beat the game without using any of the cheat codes, which is a whole thing that gets unlocked after you beat the game for the first time. We'll touch on that perhaps a bit later. And finally, the canonless run, which is what I guess you would call the most standard playthrough of this game. There are skip cannons littered throughout the worlds, which allow you to skip multiple levels at a time. And in canonless run, we simply ignore those and go through all the levels as quickly as we can in a standard order. Nothing too fancy, no special considerations to be made. Just play the game as you would if you were going through the first time, but really, really quickly.
Yep, and the one thing that you do need to keep that that you need to watch out for that Tempest will be is, as you're going through all these levels, there are 30 Ardell roses that you need to collect, which he just picked up the second one right there. These are actually needed to be able to actually access the final world of the game. At least, final in the standard playthrough.
Yeah. Considering this is a playthrough where we're going through every single one of the levels, collecting those 30 roses is not a particular challenge. He'll have more than enough by the end of this, unless he decides to just skip everything he doesn't need. In the any percent and any percent canonless runs, it gets a little bit trickier because you skip a significant number of levels in those runs, and it means you actually have to take a lot of consideration into which levels you are going to play through, which levels have fast roses to go for in order to get through to the final world as quickly as possible. It's a whole thing. It's a lot of work to map all that stuff out.
Now, admittedly, I picked up a rose that I wasn't initially planning on picking up, but I just felt like it. So I like to refer to my notes whenever I do runs like these, because sometimes you just never know. Oh, that was a horrible place to throw Chime. Okay, well, catastrophic failure. Oh, well.
It's fine. Also, you get to see a small bit of gameplay mechanic that we normally wouldn't touch on for this run. It's just a little bit of death pickup item. There's a very small corpse run mechanic where if you die in a level, you drop all the coins that you would have picked up over the course of that level. It's not a huge deal. Over the course of the game, it might be like much trickier for new players to deal with, but for any of these speed runs, it's only very valuable to keep all your coins in specific cases. This is not one of those cases, thankfully.
It's been a while since I've played this level normally, honestly. It's kind of easy to forget that you get a few vertical sections or whatnot. Most of the level structure is like something I can easily recognize without necessarily having to look up a guide per se. It's more of one of those things, though, where I just want to be very careful as to what I might be walking into, especially if I'm thinking to myself, what was this room supposed to be again? But yeah, That's about it.
Yeah, Limnala, you were saying something just a second ago, right?
I was just going to point out, as everyone can see, Chime is kind of your main attack in this, but he's also one of your primary movement abilities in here. Belle, being an acrobat, she has all sorts of jumps, but she can also throw Chime, and as Tempest has been doing, using that to propel herself either up or forward, just because of the collision. Because Chime's pretty much invulnerable to things.
Oh yeah, no, Chime takes a lot of punishment. You got to chuck him into walls, chuck him into pits, chuck him against enemies, spikes, everything. He's good. He comes out on top.
He's always smiling.
He's just having a great time.
He doesn't seem to mind.
He's having a good time. He's enjoying himself. He's out on a little adventure with Belle. He's having a grand old time. Belle's off to save her boyfriend. Chime's just along for the ride.
It's also kind of interesting, too, because whenever you see Chime eat something, it appears as though his eyes are a little not necessarily attached to his body, kind of like the Pokemon Chingling, if you're familiar with that one. Which is a bit of an interesting detail. I don't necessarily know why that is. I think it was probably design choice in a way, but I almost feel like it also could potentially play into a little bit of his nature as well, which I won't necessarily say outright. It's more of a headcanon. But anyway, here we got the first boss, who's literally named Skater, as the design also implies. And the general gist of these boss fights are going to be 3 hits you're down. That was very clean, good stuff. And as you noticed right there, all I needed to do was just hit the back 3 times, or rather once, 3 times. Blah. You have to hit the back in order to weaken him, and then you just jump on him. Now we're gonna get sent down a pit by a very sassy Cyclops child.
Yeah, if you played Sonic 3, you're used to this. This is just straight up Hydrosity start.
You're one of those people, huh?
About that. I swap between Hydrocity and Hydrosity, just depending on whatever comes out first.
Oh God.
Yes, everyone hates me.
With you.
One other thing to point out with this that won't be really shown in this game does have a lot of secret areas throughout it. There's a ton of different collectibles that in a casual or 100% playthrough you would need to go and collect. We obviously don't need those other than the 30 roses, but it is a really nice touch with this game to give you more things to actually look out for rather than just needing to go ahead and do all this platforming.
On
Which the
occasion,
platforming is also very tight. And as you saw right there, actually, Tempest just did what is, I call it a super bounce.
I call it a bounce
Basically-
extension.
That also sounds good. Yeah, basically what it is that little button will propel you up because it's just a bounce pad. But if you jump on the same, basically right as you're touching it, you combine your jump with its jump, and it just propels you flying upwards.
yeah, it's a lot of fun both to do and see whenever that happens, and it does have a large amount of utility in some cases. Especially during the any percent runs. Now, you may be saying, hey, that's weird, why'd he just kill himself there? Well, that's because the actual end goal was to take the flower that we picked up over to Claire here, who's getting her own game, in order to give Chime the ability to float upwards in this big balloon and get us up above this pit. This is one of the fun things about this game that makes it really nice to speedrun, where when you collect a key item, for example, the roses or something like the flower we just got, you will actually save that progress even if you leave the level, which is incredibly useful for the runs where we're skipping a lot of levels, because it means you can just dip into a level, grab 2, maybe 3 roses, and then dip out without having to actually complete the entire level. Most of the time, we won't actually be dying in order to get back to Claire with whatever we're picking up, because the checkpoints wouldn't work out properly, but in this instance, that's the fastest way to get back to her without having to run through the entire level again.
Yeah, with all that in mind, there's just so much that goes into a game that otherwise may look pretty simple on the surface, but let me tell you, it's got charm, it's got aesthetic, and it's very, very, very fast when you know what to do. And the fact that I discovered it when I did really had me feeling like there was just so much to look forward to. And I'm so glad I was right. I am just so thankful for probably what is like one of my favorite indie games to play in general in terms of platforming.
Yeah, and there is still plenty coming with the game too. The developers are really big on just updating their games all the time with new stuff.
Oh yeah.
New fun little secrets. Like their previous game, Prodigal, which is another game that people run. It's a very fun game, pretty easy to pick up as well. Got an update relatively recently, which added a whole bunch of new stuff, and reminds me I really need to go back to that and finish all that content.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The reason for this is actually because there is a special little item that I could have collected, or sorry, not now, but like a little later on. There's a special little item that you can get in Maggie's schoolhouse once I would gain access to the second world. But first, we gotta take on this guitarist. Yeah, we're seeing a bit of a naming trend with these bosses. This guy is Riff. Sure as heck can't explain why. I couldn't think of a single reason off the top of my head.
Yeah. One of the other fun things about the game is that the bosses aren't all the same, hit the boss. I mean, they're all basically 3-hit bosses, but this one has a little DDR minigame that you have to play in order to weaken the boss and take him out. So they aren't all just dodge the enemy, hit him 3 times, and you're done. Some of them have a couple extra mechanics or little wrinkles that you have to take care of to get there.
That was some good RNG for a pattern like that. Was very quick, very easy.
That was very smooth.
All right, here we go. Last one. Okay, there we go. I was a little worried there.
Yeah, it's fine.
I don't know what happens when you mess up 3 times, honestly.
I think you take a damage.
Ah. That makes sense. Alright, well, hey, we're done with the first world, so the circus is gone, and now that we have officially checked out and let the curtains close, we've officially entered the ruins, and this is where I get to talk about where progression can definitely matter, because Ioto had mentioned the skip cannons, and those are only located within the first 3 worlds. So if you are familiar with the whole idea of New Super Mario Brothers, those cannons, yeah, those work like those. And the interesting thing is that it was also brought up how the game recognizes your collection progress for the moment that you get the item and keeps it that way even if you exit the level. In other categories, like any percent and no cactus, we would actually put that to use, in which in the no cactus run we would use the skip cannons, and sometimes there would be roses that I would want to backtrack for in some of the levels, and then I can exit them because I won't need to have to hit the goal in order to unlock the other stuff, because at that point the skip cannon has already done that for me. So it's really interesting to see how you can just sort of shake things up a little bit with this game overall. I'm gonna need that rose right there, yeah. Whoops, almost forgot that was there.
And we actually got our first glimpse at what the actual goalpost is. It's these pots that seem to be spewing out magic of some form. I admit, I'm not fully clear on what they are, other than when you play through Bonnie mode, you find out they aren't exactly what you thought they were in the first place.
Oh yeah. If I'm not mistaken, this is... Actually, I wouldn't know this for sure right now, but some part of me is thinking this has got to be Malice, right?
No, it's the wrong color.
Oh, that would make sense. Huh. Also, I might have forgotten to pick up the... oh well, at least I can get this one, but I missed a rose. That's okay, though.
Yeah, one nice thing, though, with this category is, because you're doing all the stages, you can kind of freeform which rows you pick up a little bit. And now, this key is actually going to be used, if I'm correct, a lot later. Correct, Tempest?
Yep, that's right. So, item slots, you can only carry up to 1 at a time. And how that works is some of these items you might only be able to use by pressing the dedicated item button. Other times, they may be a little more automatic, like this arcane key, which earlier in one of the circus levels, you noticed that I was collecting these smaller skeleton keys in order to then bring to these locked doors. The idea behind those was that if I die, I lose the key and have to get it back. There's also an extra type of key called, I think it's the crystal key. Yeah, thanks. And in that case, you lose it the moment you take damage. Now, the skeleton doors, you can actually unlock those instantly if you pick up this arcane key. And the reason that I'm going to use it later is there will be a section where I will not have access to Chime. So by that point, it'll be much faster to put this key to use instead of collecting the skeleton key in the level, which will then save me a lot more time trying to get in the first place. I think I just repeated myself there.
Yeah, I hate this boss so much. He's such a pain.
It's
This is actually the one. It is,
God.
and he is also the one, well, the first boss at least, that takes more than the standard 3 hits. However, as you kind of notice, while that plunger's down, Tempest was trying not to jump on him, because if you jump on him too early, as you saw, you get blasted into the ceiling of spikes.
Yep.
That always got me so much in my casual first playthrough, seriously.
Oh, I also like to touch on something real quickly. When we were going through, or when Ted was going through level 2 of the ruins just before, you noticed that he left the level through a secondary exit, like a doorway that just exited the level. That is because, in addition to the normal levels that you see all over the place, there are a set of hidden levels underground. The hollows, that's what they're called, the hollows, which are harder versions of the world above. Basically, they're extreme platforming challenges that have a much higher, precision requirement in order to complete them. In addition, they have remix bosses and it's a whole thing. Anyway, they're a lot of fun to complete, but they are quite difficult, and all the entrances are hidden someplace in the overworld, which makes getting to them pretty tricky.
Thankfully, though, if you do look at the overworld, there are actually clues on it to sort of tell you of, hey, there might be a second exit here. I will also say,
it would make sense, yeah.
the boss also of Hollow 2-5, I would say, is the hardest boss in this game if you do it without any additional items.
And here we have Flappy Chime.
Flappy Chime. That's clever.
I mean, that's what I call him whenever I see him.
It makes sense, but it makes me think back to the olden days of Flappy Bird. Oh, good God, I still remember when that
It wasn't that long ago.
I don't know. It feels pretty long back. I still remember high school and all that stuff. And I don't know. It was talked about a heckin' lot. Okay, there we go. It can be a bit of this. Yeah, Angel Donut can be a bit of a tricky power up because if you like, it works like what is basically Winged Yoshi from Mario World, where the moment you touch that's not how Winged Yoshi works. But yeah, the moment you touch the ground, you lose the power up. But Winged Yoshi, you had to repeatedly press the jump button in order to keep a consistent flapping going, and yeah, that's basically the same here. So not much else to be said really there.
Yeah, we're coming up very quickly on our next boss as well, which is it's an interesting little boss fight. I don't think this version of it is particularly hard, but the Hollow version of it, especially when you're trying to do it without being hit, is probably the most painful one in the game.
Oh, the Guardian, by the way, very simple name, but you'll see why.
Yep, and also, as was mentioned, the harder versions are remixes. Things are faster, and when you take a look, you will probably be able to guess why the remix one is so much harder.
That said, when we get to the Guardian, I sometimes like to call this one Donkey Kong Country Incarnate. Why? Well, let's just say I might have had returns for the Wii back then and still do. And this just kind of gives me sort of Tiki Tonga vibes, I believe he's called. Oh no, that's not what I wanted.
Yeah, so if you notice, the floor is coming up. That's a death plane that's just coming at you.
Yeah, the floor is lava, the walls are lava, there's, well, not the walls, but there's spikes, there's laser beams coming out of the walls, you've got acrobatics you gotta do, and throughout that you've also got to try and keep yourself from getting hit by enemies. It's a whole mess.
Yeah, that actually brings up a good point that I totally forgot to mention. Whoa, that was pretty close. So you might have noticed that there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of healing going on in this game, and yeah, this game actually presents a bit of its challenge in the idea that Belle's health can only be recovered through each checkpoint that I run through, and even then that's a single point of health coming back. It's not even a full heal. By the way, that's a nice amount of coins right there. What the geez.
Oh, now it's gone.
Sorry, it had to be done. I'm not really in need of collecting all these coins. It's just an automatic process. But yeah, not much else to say there. But now we've moved into the swamp. Shout out to any ogres out there in which I always like to think of this as Shrek World in a way. Not really though. It's just a silly little reference to the good old meme. I don't know.
That room's always the worst one for me because I always miss the bubbles on my first try through.
Yeah. Bubbles are obviously platforms that you can jump on and all that. Oh, I didn't realize Chime was there. Carb, what was the deal with that exactly?
So sometimes when you throw Chime, and what I think happened there is, he can continue bouncing off screen as you've seen. Like right here, this is just to go get the goal without needing to go any farther forward. But sometimes when you throw him, he'll just keep bouncing between two walls off screen, so you have to actually press the recall button or wait until he's bounced 3 times.
Yeah, it's not like the most annoying thing, but it always is just like hey, why can't I throw? Oh no, I didn't catch him again.
And I didn't catch myself there either, so that was just an oh-no moment in general.
Yeah, when you do a casual playthrough, those rings don't feel too bad, but once you start trying to go fast, you come to realize that you only really grab those rings from the top of your arc or when you're coming down. you tend to not grab them when you're going up on your arc, which is what makes it res. You end up missing them sometimes as you're getting used to the speedrun, or even when you are used to it, you just sometimes go a little bit faster than you thought you were.
Yeah, it's kind of a problem, but at the same time, you can fiddle with it to get through the level much easier than you normally would sometimes. Like you get used to it, or yeah, there you go. There's another hollow.
Yep, sorry for that.
Nah, that's fine. I sort of cut you off there a bit.
This level in particular introduces the barrels, which is going to actually come into play for a little big fella. And something that I always found a little troublesome with them is that, yeah, they're not destructible. They can only be knocked back the other direction if you throw Chime, but you can also do a nice little bounce through them if you hit them with a slide, which actually is a good point because Belle has two little velocities there with sliding. One is the main slide itself, which I just press down while moving, like that. And then there's the long jump, which, yeah, I press the jump button while pressing down in the midst of a slide, or press A in the midst of a slide. And yeah, the big deal about this is you can hurt enemies in a slide, but you can't do so on a long jump. So whenever you see me taking damage from that, it's not necessarily intentional. It's just me trying to go fast because, of course, it covers a lot more distance that way. But now we're moving into a boss that apparently is from Prodigal, the previous game from Colorgrave, and I had no clue until now, or the last time I ran this game, rather, with Ioto telling me.
Yep, big boss frog that shoots barrels out and jumps between two positions. That is the Prodigal frog.
Which, by the way, if you all are interested in an indie game that takes on a top-down Zelda-like approach and is basically like sort of a love letter to Link's Awakening, play Prodigal, please. In fact, oh, hi Tadra. Bye, Tadra. See, the thing is, this game actually takes place in the same world as Prodigal. And I didn't know this until after I had beaten the game and eventually learned it from somebody, but it honestly owes itself to being a decently made standalone experience that you don't necessarily have to play both games in order. It's just one of those things where if you know, you know. And I really appreciate that. I like it when games do that.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, especially when you see characters show up and it's like, wait a second.
Yeah, I just recently learned that Caroline is a character that originated from Prodigal as well, and actually is one of the characters you can also romance. Yeah, believe it or not, it's not just the Link's Awakening game. There's also romancing in Prodigal. What is this, Persona? But yeah, aside from that though, this game does have something interesting about it. Like I said earlier before starting the run, this game actually has a demo, which is still very much playable to this day on Steam. And the best part about it too is that the speedrun leaderboard actually started itself based around that. And the categories rather, still exist to this day because of course the demo is still accessible. So if you'd like to try this run for yourself, try the demo and the demo run, because not only does buying the final game actually transfer that progress to your save data to there, but it's just a nice way to sort of get used to World 1 in general as well.
Yeah, the demo is a very good way to enter into the speedrunning for this game. It is very quick, easy to learn. It is incredibly fun demo to play through, and as Steve said, it is just transferred your game right over. It is just the first 5 levels of the game. I think there are slight adjustments made to them, so you can't access the skip cannons, for example, but in general, it is identical and just as fun.
And even if you aren't interested in speedrunning.
Was that?
I'm just saying, even if you aren't necessarily wanting to speedrun it, the demo's good just for getting a feel of how tight the controls are in this game for a casual playthrough.
Oh, absolutely. Did I want to collect that one? I already collected a rose, so okay, yeah. Sorry, it's a little hard to sort of look back and forth between my notes sometimes, so these slowdowns are a little unintentional, but it is what it is. All in the name of having fun, I say. But yeah, we just collected our third ingredient. In case you haven't noticed the pattern going on with these world stages, in every... Oh, dang, that was not fun. That was a little tragic there. The pattern goes where every third stage of a world, it's the first boss of a world. Every fifth stage, it's the last boss of a world. Every fourth stage, at least for the first 4 worlds, you gotta do a ingredient fetch quest for Claire. And we'll see that one more time coming up soon. Here we go, though.
Yeah,
All
all these power-ups are also pretty fun, since they give you both new tools to play around with inside this level, which gives it a little bit of a, exploration open up thing. But at the same time, you can also get access to those powers in the wider world by buying them from the store, which then go in the active item slot, which is currently taken up by a key. So across different levels, you may see, for example, those flame blocks, or sections that you'd need chime to inflate and turn into a winged chime, or a balloon to get up to. So it gives you a little bit of exploration all across the other levels. It's not to the same level as like a Metroidvania where it opens up whole new zones necessarily, but it does give you a lot of opportunity to find secrets that are hidden throughout the levels, find just little nooks, maybe some alternate paths on occasion. It's a whole thing.
Absolutely so.
This game is absolutely jam-packed with secrets and other things to find all across all the levels. It's much more than just a couple worlds that you just bash through once or twice.
So now we're up to Moonshine, and she's a bit of a friendly skeleton gardener, and one who appears nice and all, but of course she's still loyal to Bonnie. The common theme behind these skeleton enemies, that was a really good fight, by the way.
Yeah, it was clean.
Very clean. The common theme behind these skeleton enemies is that Bonnie is what's called a Hearthen, and on top of that, she has these necromancy powers to her as well. So these minions are generally her doing, which is a nice little design theme that Colorgrave sort of played around a bit when making most of these bosses. I say most because obviously there were a few exceptions like the Guardian and the Boss Frog, but aside from that, it's really, really interesting seeing this whole consistency and seeing the simple but effective ways of playing around with these different minions. Like, for instance, you see the fireball shooting skeletons are actually these skeletons lit up on fire, and yet they're sneezing because you notice they have these handkerchiefs on them.
Yep, they're just burning up with a fever.
Yeah. Also, one thing that's not necessarily clear at first glance, but as soon as I say it, you might notice, the skeletons are all inflatable.
Oh yeah,
which is why when you defeat them, they pop like that.
There you go. That actually makes sense. Why it took me this long to fully affirm that, I have no clue.
Yeah, the bosses are more clear, like Skater right at the very start. When he gets defeated, there's like a very significant amount of like inflating until he bursts, because all the skeletons are like inflatable skeletons, and that's why they're all bouncy. It's just a fun little detail.
That little long shot goal, by the way, is a bit tricky to get, but it can also save you the trouble of having to go through, oops, so many enemies. I think that was a slippery D-pad right there. Well, that was my bad.
Yeah, so we don't really touch on it in this run because they're really only relevant for the 100% run, but there are 3 medals that you can get at the end of each of these levels. There's the speed medal, the target medal, and the long shot medal. Speed medal is probably the most self-explanatory if you're watching a speedrun. It's just beat the level as fast as possible. That usually involves any number of tricks and other, I wouldn't say exploits, but just little cheats that let you get through a section faster than you normally would. For example, beating the level once and then coming back with a key that lets you get through the level much faster, or have a Claire power that lets you get through the level faster than you normally would, that sort of thing. The long shot medal has 2 variations. In normal levels, there's the cauldron at the end, which you send Chime at, and if you throw him from far enough away, which usually involves some hidden little route or some odd angles you have to chuck him at, that gets you the long shot medal. On the other hand, if it's a boss level, then you can just beat the boss without taking a hit, and that'll get you the long shot medal for that level. Which is why beating some of the harder bosses with no hits is a pain, because it means you have to do that in order to get 100%. And then finally the target medal, which is just each level has a target room, which is sort of like a Smash Bros. Original break the targets thing. It's just a little challenge where you can send Chime at targets to break them all in order, and when you complete that, you get the target medal.
I'm trying to do these little swag things, by the way, where I'm skipping these moving platforms with damage boosts, but of course that's not always the easiest thing to do because those platforms are intentionally made small, and they're simply just meant to be big enough for Belle to, at the very least, clear with the height of her jumps. Oh yeah, it also bears worth mentioning, she actually has two different jump heights. One in which you saw me crouch before I pressed jump to go higher, and then there's just the simple jump height itself. There's also Chime launching as well, of course. I am being a little bit reckless right now, admittedly.
Admittedly, this section can be difficult to traverse through simply because, as you can see, you keep on going up, but because you can't really see as much vertically as you can horizontally, it can be hard to tell where the enemies are if you get off whatever cycle you're used to.
Yeah, pretty much. There we go.
Oh.
Whew. Out of there.
Yeah.
So, Zoku, how are you liking this so far?
I mean, I think that it's got a very Game Boy Color aesthetic to it, and that's really speaking to me.
Oh yeah, that was very much intentional. Color Grave is no stranger to making these sort of nods to these old aesthetics and in more of a modern scope, obviously, but hey, that's totally fine, because I know Shovel Knight also does that sort of thing. 8-bit style, but obviously not held back by those old retro limitations, which, yeah, I always appreciate that from any kind of game. It shows that you don't have to go full tilt on an old style art direction. Just do whatever you think makes sense, and it tends to work more often than not.
And I mean, also, I'm not great at platformers. I'm going to be direct here, but you make the movement look really, really fun. It's just like flipping and tumbling all over the place. And of course, there's like just so many platforms to jump on. You can even bounce off the enemies, which is always great, but it looks stylish as heck.
If you think my performance is good enough, wait until you see Druid Vorse. Let me just put it that way. That guy is a machine. Oh, well, it looks like I'm throwing slightly for content. There we go. That's a bit more like it. This is Artis, probably the most frustrating casual boss of the game, and for good reason. You're playing Pong, which, yeah, as you noticed, I was trying to use Chime to destroy these blocks right there. There we go. That's a bit more like it. And the first person to score 3 points wins. He just dies right there, but if I get 3 points, I'm going to immediately try to hit that death wall because it's going to try and close in on me anyway, and there's nothing I can do about that.
Yeah.
One's close.
Ooh, that was real.
Oh no, that was not good.
Well, it's fine. It's Final Destination.
Yeah. This is the final fetch quest for Claire, by the way, and probably one of the zaniest items yet, but a really cool one in my book. Yeah, that was unfortunate.
I did want to touch on something that Zokuan just said real quick, where it looks like it just controls really well and it's all very tight platforming and all that. This game has an absolutely fantastic sense of flow to it. Like, I've played a lot of platformers over the years. I played platformers that, control well, platformers that just are incredibly stiff, and platformers that control well but have level design that just makes it so you feel like you're never in control of your character properly. This does not have that. This game controls fantastic and also makes it feel like the game knows what you want to do, even though it's really the other way around. It feels great to play the game. It really does, genuinely. And if you don't believe me, try the demo. Just try the demo. It's right there. It's free.
It's free real estate.
purchase.
It's free, and it's the entire first world, and I believe it also has the first Hollow world as well.
Oh, that's actually a good point.
I didn't actually know the Hollow was in the demo.
Maybe it is.
I could be wrong about that. I think it does, though.
No, because it's likely, maybe not. Like, that does bear worth looking, because I know for a fact that we do have a demo 100% category, and I think that mostly just pertains to all the stuff that you definitely can collect within the first world. But, okay, Soda Machine is saying it's probably locked, which it makes a lot of sense. By the way, you probably are curious about those little blocks. You might have seen a few blocks with what looks to be a scythe icon. That's actually something that got a little more recently. Aw, dang it. Man, I was so close to hitting that checkpoint too.
The scythe icon is because, unlike Belle, Bonnie does not have the ability to call up Chime and have Chime turn into a flaming ball or a balloon in order to get up levels. So she needs an alternate path in order to clear some of these levels, which is where those scythe blocks come in.
Not only that, but she also has a singular item as well. I'm gonna go the back way. I'm having trouble trying to get through this. Never mind. Gosh, this game is trying to put me through the ringer. I was feeling so confident going into this one, but no, we're easily gonna smash the estimate, no problem still, because like, admittedly, when I put in a bit of a safety estimate sometimes, I forget that sometimes it can also be like too much, because when I know how to play a game fast enough, really,
you might want to try just exiting at this point. You do have the
that's a good maybe that's what I should have done in the first place. Good gosh. Very good idea though. Yeah, I agree.
The game heard us saying it seems fun and said, you know what, we know some players like a challenge. Let's show us be challenging.
I guess you're not wrong.
And here we have
also
the Phantom
enjoy the Phantom Flan.
Yes, the most situationally extremely powerful item in the game.
Yep, either you're immune to everything, or you fall through the floor and you immediately land in lava and die.
It's great.
And
all
now
right,
boss
here we have
time.
Yeah, so Beakton is one of the most difficult fights in the game. He attacks you with projectiles from off screen, and then... Alright, so Bonnie's coming up.
Yeah, what you're supposed to do there, if you don't do that quick kill, is hit him into the spikes. But now, here's the real fight. Thankfully, as you can see here, you can kind of get Bonnie stuck in a little bit of a loop. Each time you hit her, she's going to respawn those little, I call them options from like Gradius, but after I think it's 5 or 6 hits, she's down, but now she got kidnapped. So now we have to go save Bonnie.
Technically, it's 7 hits, because I guess they wanted to do Lucky 7 or something. I have no clue.
Oh, fair
also,
enough.
we're on the moon now.
Space! Sorry, bad Tim Curry impression aside, yes, we are now in the Astral level, which is the final world of the game. There are still roses to collect, but at this point, I had more than enough to open up the gate that was there to take me there, so I don't have to go for them anymore. Really?
Ooh. Well, at least this level's not very long.
Not at all. Not at all. By the way, look at the timer, you'll see the speed medal icon in the corner, and the reason for that is the timer is there to tell you whether or not you're eligible to get it by the time you reach the goal conditions, so it's a really helpful feat. Originally, this was the purpose of the stopwatch item in Maggie's schoolhouse. The only difference was you also didn't have access to checkpoints, so it was kind of like a time trial item, but made it a little more difficult that way too. Nowadays, the stopwatch literally lets you stop where you are and you're impervious to damage, but all the while you're also burning coins to do so.
Also, one thing just to mention that we kind of skipped over, Tempest skipped 2/3 of this stage. You could just go straight to the coin and ignore the other most of the stage if you know where that key would exit you out of.
Yeah, it's... The main reason why this level is not where we use the key that we picked up all that time ago over in the city.
let's see here. So this
And
is Tidra, and now we actually get to fight her. So she's doing the Yu-Gi-Oh! Magic Shuffling Hat spell card that I always like to point out whenever... oh no, that was bad.
That's unfortunate.
Luckily, she does that again. There we go. Whew. Ugh. That was totally an accident.
You might say you jumped the gun a little.
I see what you did there, you sly devil. All right. Moving on to 5-2. Actually, this brings up a very interesting point about this game. Well, for one, I'd actually like to point out, in case you're impressed by the whole aesthetic of it all, yeah, this is made in Unity Engine. I had no clue for the longest while, but yeah, this is fantastic for Unity Engine. Absolutely so. But second, there are actual story conditions involved with some of these levels that you can do. For instance, in the any percent category, you don't have to do the first stage where you fight Tedra. Instead, you just need to go... oh, that was a little too short. There we go. You actually just need to go and beat stage 5-2 in order to unlock the way to... well, we'll talk about that in a moment, but yeah, in order to proceed to some of the final stuff, you just need to beat Lear here, who is the harpy we saw earlier, who activated the Guardian boss against us in the ruins. But yeah, I'm gonna let my commentators take over here.
Yeah, so Lear is one of the most infuriating bosses in the game, honestly. She is the only boss that does not follow the pattern of jump 3, 4, however many times. How many times do you have to hit her? Like
20.
15? 20. Okay, well, she's dead now, but she also has several patterns that make her invulnerable to damage, which means that you have to try and sneak as much damage as you can in during one of her slow attack phases. Which, thankfully, she did a couple of those, which are the ones where she's at the top of the screen shooting arrows down. Anyway, this is Blind Gaze. She is effectively one of the demigods of this world, and now we're on an asteroid that's on the collision course for the moon. Because if it hits the moon, then that'll wipe out the planet. Which is bad.
Yeah, so Tedra and Lear are part of this... are hatching this plot where they're pretty ticked off about the civilization down below, and they kind of want to pull off a genocide down there, which we obviously want to say no to. So, you know, just a little thing to try and take care of all the same. Not much else to say there otherwise, really.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Did we talk about the spark bangle in full?
No, you just mentioned it, I think.
Right. So the spark bangle is another item you can collect in Maggie's schoolhouse, and that's actually something you can use an arcane key in order to get straight to. In fact, I think that's the only way you can get to it. So, keeping that in mind, the caveat in order to get that thing is you have to get 100% completion. Oh, thank you. I didn't have to activate that checkpoint, though, now that I think about it. And now we're about to activate a cutscene where we got a fusion dance and oh no, Chime!
Yes, so this is the third world of this, or the third level of this world, which means this will be the boss fight. But there isn't a boss fight. Instead, the boss fight is now you have to do the next level without Chime.
Which, if you've ever played Mario Sunshine and you've had to do the floodless stages, it kind of feels like that because you've just lost what one of your primary movement options has been up until this point.
Not to mention your defensive tool, since that's how you take out a lot of enemies.
Now this is where we're going to use the arcane key, right there.
Yeah, so the reason we use it there is a path down below where we go to grab the key for the actual stage. It's actually not a very long pathway to get the key, but it is sufficiently annoying enough that everybody who runs it just goes, no, just buy the key. It's easier.
By the way, shout out to Zeal from the temple. He helps us get up. He's a cool dude. All my homies dig Zeal.
Also time for my favorite song.
Yeah, absolutely. It's final boss time.
speaking of, time will also be coming up very soon.
That's correct. So how it's going to work is this boss is divided into 3 phases. Liadra here will eventually die, but we stop time on the first frame that the next text box will come up. With that said, take it away, commentators. We got some explaining to do.
Yeah,
Right,
so for this... you go ahead.
You can take care of it.
Fair enough. So for this fight, as you see, we now have Bonnie's Scythe. That's really the only way we can attack Alidra, and if you are at full health, she'll usually only take 1 hit of damage from each scythe swing. However, if you are damaged, she'll actually start getting chained without really any iframes from basically each frame that the scythe is in there. Because when you're damaged, she starts shooting out these little green orbs, which if you collect them, will actually heal you.
You may think, wow, that seems easy. How can you die to this boss? It's possible.
All right, and time. There we go. That's the full game, folks. That's the Canonless run, all done as Belle without the Spark Bangle. Oh yeah, I should have continued that explanation. So the Spark Bangle is an item where you need to get 100% completion on any file, and then it's available for you to collect in any other playthrough of the game that you do. And man, it breaks the game in half so much. It not only gives Belle a double jump, like the Graven Mask, which was the item that we commonly used for the any percent route, but it also gives her a usable dash charge, which can also be used in midair. So we recently came up with the idea of separating the categories into Belle mode and no Spark Bangle Belle. So just a nice way to sort of give people the choice of doing whatever it is they want to do. But yeah, that's the run. This is the Canonless category, and that is a PB.
Hey, congrats!
I knew I was going to smash this estimate, but I also knew it was very, 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 very likely for a PB as well, so... Yeah, no question about it. All right, let's let the ending cutscene go ahead, because I think we need to stop seeing Melty Liadra at this point.
Yeah, and
so Chime's okay.
Not only is he okay, he's a little hungry. He just casually eats the world-ending meteor like it's nothing.
MBD. Anyway, Lear and Tedra get sent back to their home dimension. Bonnie and Belle make up, go home, and it's a happy ending for everybody. All loose ends tied up.
Sounds about right to me. So I'd like to go ahead and give a couple of shout-outs to the speedrunning community here, which if you'd like to check us out and if you'd like to learn the game and get a bit of advice for it yourself, there is the official Colorgrave server, which you can check out the Discord link for within the leaderboards themselves. And we also obviously cater to Prodigal speedrunning as well as whatever games are coming out soon. And yeah, no, Colorgrave has been pretty hard at work for their next stuff, and I look forward to seeing what it is they do. It's going to be a really cool time, I'll bet. And because like we mentioned, Claire's getting her own game, so you will be seeing some returning faces from this game. And there is still a lot to do. Like, 100% is the longest category in the game, without a doubt. But man, the amount of stuff that they keep adding is just so much fun. There's a playable Bonnie now. There's a bunch of new levels and quests that you can do. It just feels so nice, and I can't help but thank Colorgrave for making this game. And if you'd like to get it yourself, it's only $15 on Steam and itch.io. So it is PC exclusive at the moment, but hey, maybe one of these days, who knows? I could totally see this coming on Switch. Of course, that's all up to them. For now, though, thank you, Uwacarb, and thank you, Ioto, for joining me. It's a pleasure of a time.
Oh, it's a pleasure to join in.
Before you all sign off, just real quick, if people want to find you, where can they?
Well, where can we find Clyde? That's the first question.
Don't worry about it. He's fine.
It turns out that even if you do rescue him, this cutscene still plays no matter what. That's a bit of a shame. Oh well. Anyway.
Poor Clyde.
Yeah. Ioto, we'll start with you. Where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitch at IotaCorp, at Twitter at IotaCorp, and also on Twitter I have the link to my social page, which is social... is it socials or social?
We'll figure it out.
Yeah, anyway, I got social medias all over the place. So it's basically a IotaCorp at everything. It's nice and easy, unified branding.
How about you, Carb?
Similar unified branding on Twitch, Twitter, or YouTube. Just look up Liminality Carb.
Awesome. And if you, excuse me. And if you'd like to check me out, my Twitch is TempestMask1000. I also got a YouTube channel of the same name as well. And my Twitter at @It'sTempestSteve is where I do post any time that I might be doing event runs or going live myself, because I do not have a static schedule as somebody that is a little busy with all sorts of other stuff as well. But I very much appreciate anybody that wishes to pop in if they ever feel like they got the time to do so. Your presence is more than appreciated. Following and everything else is all optional. I just appreciate having folks for the ride. With that said, thank you so much for having me, Pixel Perfect. It was great to be back. I know I was present for the first one, and it's good to be here with the second with this fantastic game. Again, please get it. Demo is available. And with that, we've got a fantastic upcoming run featuring some wonderful people of Sonic.
Let me cut in real quick, Steve. We've gotten the bonus run in, actually. But we are going first to a quick break. So folks, you know what? Now's an excellent time to get a drink, stretch your legs, get some more snacks if you've munched through everything through this amazing game just now. And actually, hey, you know what would also be a great time to do? Get the demo. That's like the one takeaway I've gotten from this commentary. Get the demo for Curse Crackers.
Thank you, Zoku. All right, everyone. Well, until we next meet, ciao, Michi.
All right, folks. That was a fantastic run. Get some more GGs in chat for our amazing Tempest Steve here. And like I said, we do actually have a bonus game coming up. Nick RPG Green will be running Mini Ghost Any Percent next. So make sure you get all of whatever I just said in. Drink, snacks, Curse Crackers demo. Very important, that one. We'll be right back.